welcome to an exciting afternoon. You know, my husband often says to me that, Sanila, why don't you learn that poem about an owl who lived on an oak? The more he saw, the less he spoke. The less he spoke, the more he heard. Why can't you be like that wise young bird? He didn't say all, of course, because for the safety of his own life. I turned around and I said, I don't need to actually learn that poem because I know a night owl who lives in the hearts of the people. Will you all join me in welcoming A for awesome and R for razor sharp, Alan Robson?
Yep,
Mr. Alan Robson.
Come on, razor sharp, of course.
You know, you are somebody who's when the night vigil starts, you are the soldier of the night, you are a friend that people feel that they can be themselves with, and you're always there to say, you know, everything is going to be all right, isn't it?
Hopefully.
Shall we start off with some kind of warm up questions?
Whatever you like.
Okay, so what is easier to leave, Alan? Women or wine?
I don't drink. I had a drink problem because West End kids try to drink from about the age of 11.
Yeah.
By 15, they're really usually quite good at it.
Right.
By the time I was 16, I was far too good at it. And I was just learning my craft and finding that every time that I'd been drinking, everything just fell apart. Right. You can't do anything well if you drink.
Oh, right.
You can't make love well. You can't do your job well. You can't play sports well.
Right.
You can't think well. You can't rationalise with your friends well. So what's the point? So I gave it up, never went back, still haven't. And
what's your answer? What is easier to leave, women or wine?
I couldn't leave women, ever.
That's
but I've left wine long ago.
Okay, so did you notice that I'm wearing a hat as well?
Very nice hat.
You know, where is yours?
So yeah.
This
is my actual. This is my summer hat.
Right. Oh wow.
There you go.
Oh God, I'm gonna just take it off now.
There you go. It's a bit pompous, but I loved it when I saw it. Saw it in France. There's a shop in Paris on the Marais.
Yeah.
Where I used to work in Paris early doors as a DJ in a very sleazy nightclub for 6 months. And when I was there, you get to know all the nooks and crannies of Paris, not just the big touristy places.
Right, okay.
And there's always been a shop that I've always wanted to shop at. Back then, couldn't afford it, but going back 20 and 30 years later, when you've got a little bit of money, you sometimes can. And they do just wacky, bizarre, grand kind of clothes and hats.
I love them. I did actually do a lot of research, and I feel that I've done a kind of a master's in
Robson.
in Robsonology.
Good, that's good. It should be a college course.
Absolutely, it should be. I really think because you're so interesting.
Well, nice to see. Anyway, what can I do for you?
Okay, starting with an early life. You know, I was reading about you, and I just read one of the local historians, Yvonne Young, and she said, you know, it's about Benwell where you were born, and she said that, you know, it's like hard folks with big hearts teeming with life. Do you agree with that? Is that the sort of environment you were?
Yeah, I mean,
you grew up in.
There was a nice, gentle community spirit,
right?
But with a very sharp underbelly of nasty. There was a small percentage of really bad people that lived there then, still live there now. So you've got these beautiful people whose names have been much maligned over the years because of the bad image of the area. Right. But it's such a small percentage.
In what ways it was a challenge? In what ways it really nurtured you in the man that you are today, that we all are proud of, Alan Robson?
Well, I mean, I did an awful lot of things back then that I wasn't particularly proud of. I mean, did a lot of fighting, usually with other gangs. You'd never bother citizens.
Right.
You'd protect the people on the streets where you lived. There was a lot of things. I mean, once the local police officer said, "Have you seen the old lady who usually sits at the upstairs window?" I said, "I haven't seen her for 3 or 4 days." He said, "Will you climb up the drain pipe and climb in?"
And you did.
And I did, and she was dead on the floor. It was the first time I ever saw death. So with community spirit and the fighting, it's kind of bittersweet. 90% of the time was lovely and it was a pleasant place to grow up. The other 10% was dangerous or unpleasant.
And nasty as well.
Yeah.
I actually heard you saying in one of your interviews that you were a bully as a child.
I was a bully. No, it's easy being a bully. The reality of it was, when I was about 4 or 5, I was about 5 or 6 inches taller than pretty much everybody else.
Right.
So I used it. I pushed people around a bit, and I was very, very unpleasant with a lot. And then, finally, we moved up to the big school,
Yeah.
9 or 10, where all the people who I'd bullied had big brothers. And they all kicked 7 shades out of me. And it was a lesson in karma. I was unpleasant for those years, and I ended up getting 3 or 4 years of absolute murder off the big brothers of all the people that I'd picked on. And it taught me a lesson. And you see, over the years, the one lesson that I have found that I know is absolutely true is if you dish out a lot of niceness and kindness and love, you get it all back. If you do any bad thing, and I mean, no matter how small, someone bad will come around and slap you.
I totally agree with you. But you know, Alan, from what I know about bullying, a bullied child is either a forgotten child or
that was me, because my parents,
or a voiceless child.
No, my parents had 2 children. My sister was 12 years older than I was. By the time I got up to school age, she'd left to go to a convent as a nun in a silent order.
Right.
Couldn't see my family.
Mm-hmm.
I, as a child, was unwanted because I was a mistake. That my parents told me I was a mistake, so really? I didn't have a close bond with them particularly. So I tried to make a life for me. Even from that very young age, I had issues. I heard my parents when I was very young arguing about me. Say, well, I didn't want them, and they said you shouldn't have fallen pregnant.
You actually heard those messages?
Yeah, it was an unpleasant thing.
You felt powerless, voiceless.
Well, invisible. I just felt unwanted. I mean, because they didn't want me. And the only people on earth that I had didn't want me. A nightmare. So, I mean, what do? You crack on, don't you? I'm over it. You know.
You are over it.
Absolutely.
Were you a good student, though, by the way?
I was always in the top class, except for 1 year, right the way through my whole school career.
Right.
But I was always the student at the bottom of the top class, kind of clinging on.
Right. Okay.
So, no, I wasn't a great student. I did what was necessary. Fell in love with geography, fell in love with history, fell in love with English. But I had teachers that kind of lit you up in those areas. So I was very lucky because it was an all boys school and it was very violent. And it was a great escape to have somebody that knew enough about the subject to really fascinate you. If they talked about a subject that lit me up, I would then get every book that I could possibly find on that subject and wallow in it. Oh, and it's kind of stood me in good stead for the stuff that I'm doing and have done over the years. So.
That's amazing. So lovely to know that you had some kind of support there. So, but then as a young adult, you always wanted to be, the dream was to be a singer. And I read somewhere that you said that you realized that you wanted to write your own songs, but you realized that you're not good enough. So was it as a result of the negative messages that you heard, or was it a voice from within that said, do not sing, you're not a singer?
I wish I'd had a voice from within. That was the thing. I started out working in pubs and clubs, and as a child, you can get away with it.
Yeah.
Because if anybody says, oh, you can't get him off, then somebody would say, he's just a band, he's just a kid, let him get on with it, so you can sing. When I got a little bit older, I got into kind of rockier music, and I realised very early that I didn't have the pipes to carry it off. I could judge other people and say, well, that band's not very good. So then when you listen to your own back and you're not even as good as them, you say, I'm going to do something else. So I then decided, try a bit of stand-up comedy. Did that for a little while.
How was it received?
It was all right. I mean, I did okay. I did a few tours of the Northeast.
Yeah.
But what they don't tell you is that after you've toured every major club in the North, if you've got no contacts anywhere else, then you just start again doing the same clubs with a second lap. Well, you can't do that with the same material you've just used.
Yeah.
So what time do you have to sit down and write another 2-hour piece? It takes a while. Just to gather that amount of material. So then I had to find something to do in the meantime that brought money in. I did mobile DJing. And that got me my first DJ slot.
That was an instant hit, wasn't it?
Yeah,
and you got quite a few awards for that as well, the independent DJ, and then you were the president of the Tyneside DJ Association as well.
That was years ago. Yeah,
so what kind of DJ you were? Were you a performing DJ, like, doing the turntable scratching, and in those days, did you have that? Or
we did. I can do that. It wasn't particularly my thing. To be honest, I started out just doing your standard, not on radio, just standard parties and what have you.
Mm-hmm.
And then eventually I discovered that once you got people who came to see you because you were the radio person,
Right. Uh-huh.
I would never play a record ever. I'd have somebody else doing that. I'd be out in the front with a team of dancers, dancing and throw myself around.
Right, okay,
So,
you had a team of dancers as well.
Yeah,
Are you a dancer yourself?
No, that's why I had a team of dancers. I had a team of dancers. We travelled all over the world together. We did gigs all over the world, every major festival, and they were tremendous. I miss them. The Bladettes they were called, and had a team of little baby ones for family shows.
Yeah.
Had a team of juveniles if we did pantomimes.
I
had
know,
a team
I heard about that as well.
Adult dancers for everything else.
So pantomime was a result of obviously the comedy that you always wanted to do, but you did so well in pantomimes, you know.
Panto was good, and then I ended up writing a couple and putting them on myself.
Yeah.
Enjoyed it. Would happily do it again.
Yeah.
It's not that I feel that I'm a great actor or anything like that, because in panto you're just being an extension of yourself.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So, and that was easy. So you just go out. We wrote the last one I did was Sherlock Holmes and the Case of the Christmas Curse, and I put that together and gathered a team of locals with all local names in it, so that it was essentially the northeastern pantomime.
Right. So as an actor, are you able to connect with emotion quite quickly?
Yeah. Well, I mean, for what I had to do, I was writing myself as a bit of a dullard, and I gave all the best lines to the supporting cast. Because I was Sherlock Holmes, and he has to be serious.
Yeah.
He even shaved the tash off. Can you believe? My goodness, how committed was I? And but yeah, we had, instead of Scotland Yard, we had Scotswood Yard.
Right.
We had all of the characters were named after local places. Mm. It was a big hit. But the first one I got into ran for 6 months for charity.
Yeah, I read that.
Just went on forever.
Very.
And if you're doing a pantomime matinee, then you're doing an evening show, then you're getting on air to do the Night House program till 2 in the morning.
That's right.
And we did it for 6 months. That was a long slog. I don't think I'd be physically capable of doing that.
But then radio is something that really made you stand out in the crowd, and that was something that's absolutely amazing. You got so many awards for that. I mean, the New York Radio Award, Lifetime Achievement Award from the Radio Academy, and then the Best Presenter in Speech Award as well, and all that. What makes you stand out? Because I was thinking about, particularly from your contribution in America with such a strong accent. How were you able to connect with the American audience so well?
The Americans always thought I was Scottish. I mean,
did they?
Wherever I went in Scotland, it was particularly annoying.
Right.
You're that Scottish fella. And you go, hello, and you'd shake the hand and what have you. But no, we did well in America. It was funny because around about that time, I was still singing in a blues band.
Right.
And we were doing the Hell Blues Festival in Norway, where they knew me as a singer and a kind of crazy front man. In America, they knew me as this man from hell that made people cry on ghost hunts, because the shows were full on and we did make people cry. And I did do it on purpose to really generate fear in people. And we put them in some horrible places and left them there even when they were in trouble. So this was like a really gripping show. And then in the Northeast, it's our Alan looking after us and loyal, steadfast and trusted. So I had 3 very different faces to people. So you never knew which one you were going to meet in the street. Was it going to be somebody who's terrified of you, somebody who thinks you're a daft blues singer, or somebody that thinks you're the guy off the radio in the north? So, but it was good to try and do as many things as you can while you could. It's like I've been very lucky. I've ticked 1,000 bucket lists, really have, and very lucky to have been able to do that.
I absolutely noticed that you speak on radio to express, not to impress, really. But have you got any milestone, like radio presenters that you use as reference, for instance, that you look up to and that you've learned from?
There's only one presenter really that did it for me, and he was a Radio 1 presenter way back. His name was Alan Freeman.
Alan Freeman.
And he was on afternoons on a Saturday at a time of day where you should never play rock music. You should never play rock music in the middle of the day, because 40% of it has themes or words that you couldn't play at that particular time of the day. Right. However, he did. And he did it by interlacing classical music with rock music.
Right.
And he did it beautifully. He'll say, here's a fabulous ballad from Queen. But before that, he would play something by Sanson, or maybe something from Finlandia. There was not a lot of it, just enough to link the thing together. And then out of this mixture of music that he was playing, that we'd heard sometime, or somewhere in my psyche, I'd heard all of this classical music. And then out of it comes this beautiful rock ballad. And it was art. It was art. And then if he was playing something that was real solid thumping rock, you'd get a bit of Tchaikovsky or a bit of Wagner, something triumphant, or Strauss. Wow. And then all of a sudden, then crash, this rock band starts. It was beautifully done.
Creative,
it sounds
unpredictable.
Sounds totally impossible. Sounds like it wouldn't work.
Right.
I don't think it would work for anybody else.
Yeah.
He made it work. And that allowed me, when I went to play music on radio, to instead of wanting to play non-stop of one style, the joy is play something that they totally don't expect when they least expect it.
Exactly, that's the beauty of it.
And it is, absolutely. There was one day we had a queue on the Tyne Bridge, and in Sunderland there was queues.
Wow.
Teesside there was queues. It was a bank holiday Monday. Everybody was miserable. So I was doing an afternoon show, and I put on a 40-minute mix that I'd made of the best Walt Disney songs. And everybody in their cars, being miserable, they were all singing Supercalifragilistic, and we were getting all these texts in saying, "This is the greatest car journey I've ever had." And it's because we did something off the map that nobody else would have.
Absolutely.
But that's the trick. And radio, even today, misses that. They've gone into playlisting, and
it's so predictable.
The whole point of radio is spontaneity, doing something just a little bit known. On another occasion, I got a band from the Appalachian Mountains that played washboards, banjos, fiddles. They were mountain men from America, and they did Mickey takes of rock songs in their own kind of hippie style. And they were bizarre but hilarious. And once again, there's queues on the bridge. The bosses were out, so I sneaked in. I says to the guy who was on here, "Do you want a session?" He said, "Oh, I'm not allowed sessions." I said, "Trust me." We put the guys on. Everybody was just loving them, doing a Beatles song that was, all fiddles and stuff. How can you not?
How can you not love it? Beautiful. You're absolutely spot on with this. It's all about being unexpected and spontaneous and just like in the moment. Fantastic. By the way, I don't agree with your displeasure with your own voice, because I managed to listen to you, one of the songs that, "Oh Lord, how can you be humble when you're so..." Your voice is beautiful, Alan, and I could feel that, compared to the original one, you were telling a story, and I loved it. I just connected with that.
It was nice of you to say. I did a whole range of very, very rude, and I hope you haven't heard the worst of them, very rude songs on purpose, so that late at night when people, because the last thing that somebody's going to expect. And this guy wrote in and he said, "I'm 60-odd year old, and a friend of mine's given me a Viagra tablet, and I really want to give it a go, but I'm a bit frightened because I haven't been intimate with my wife for a few years. I haven't been able to." And so I said to him, just one night, when you're having a night in, say a few nice things to her. Get her some flowers, get her some chocolates, give her a bit of romance. Take the tablet about 30, 40 minutes before. Just see what happens. And he rang up the following day saying, "Alan, you brought us closer together and all this. Just lovely. And I don't care what they did, that was up to them." But then I wrote a song about it, which was actually very rude indeed. But it was based on a true thing. Right. And yet, why shouldn't somebody... And it's like, it didn't look like it used to look, but I did it anyway. So it was, because with age, your body obviously changes. Right. So you're thinking, sex between a 65-year-old woman and a 62-year-old woman is going to be very different in 1,000 ways, a little bit more comfortable, shall we say, than it would have been when you're 19 and tearing each other's clothes. It worked out for the guy. And then when people heard that song, they said, "Oh, do you remember that fella that rang in that time? That's what that's about." So it's tying the whole thing together.
It's so relatable as well. But since you're talking about these couples and stuff, so that reminds me of the 5 marriages that you had. 5 or 6? 5. All right, okay.
So far.
So, so I'm good. It's good to be optimistic. Why not? I hope your wife is not listening. But so, do you believe in the 3 rings of marriage? The the engagement ring, the marriage ring, and the suffering.
Yeah.
And would you like to add vicar ring as well?
No, not really. I mean, I must say, if there's any passion in the marriage, you're going to argue. That's normal. That's a given. I love my wife very much. I hope I don't have to go look at anywhere else for the rest of my life comfortably. Right, okay. I'm very, very happy where I am.
Excellent.
I don't particularly like being bossed, but I need a woman who knows her own mind, and she does.
Yeah, okay.
I think that's the difference. Because of the hours that I put in, which is on average between 70 and 80 a week, you could understand. You could understand a woman being tempted by, I'm doing nothing, I'm doing nothing, I'm doing nothing. Here's a handsome man. So that happened twice. Second marriage was kind of a reboundy kind of thing. Here's a really nice girl. I don't think she'll ever hurt me. She never did. I ended up hurting her, and I regret it very much indeed. And then we get back into cheating land again. So.
Really?
Yeah, so. Yeah, well, somebody came to the door and said, well, it left a note, your wife, my husband, if you want to know more, ring this number.
Yeah, that's not very nice at all. That's horrible. Yeah. But you think cheating is a choice?
You can't accidentally fall into somebody, literally.
You can't.
It takes a bit of time to remove clothes and chat up and find a place and all of that. No.
Are you bitter about it?
Yes.
Oh, you are? Okay,
yeah, a bit. Well, I mean, not enough to want her back, I'd have to say. But I was set. I'd 25 odd years with this woman. And you think that well, that's probably going to be it. I'm not, because I wasn't looking, wasn't cheating, wasn't doing anything other than grafting.
Yeah, brilliant.
And then boom, lots of telephone business, 2 phones now. Oh, where did that come from? Yeah. So then one day I had a look at one and found out a lot of things that I'd rather not find out.
Oh, is that right? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to
That's
go into
right.
details. But isn't it good, Alan? Maybe it was time for her to leave you, to allow you to grow as an individual. So thank her for leaving you at the right time.
Well, yeah, but it's difficult to thank her when she took every penny that you had, and the house and the car and everything. And it's because the Lord doesn't look at whose fault it is. They just say, oh, she's got less than him, so give her everything he's got.
Right. So the broken nose is not because you disagreed with her.
No, I never.
Right. Okay. It was
I've had a few. I've had a number of broken noses. I've had 5 in total in my life. 2 for fighting, 3 for sport. So
eventually, it looks nice now.
Well,
it does.
It's roughly central. So
okay, absolutely brilliant. Alan, you've done television, you've done radio, you're a writer, you've written books and all that. Why didn't you do film?
Some of my work, people have come for and said, I'm thinking of making a film. And it nearly came off about 2 or 3 years ago that somebody came up and said, we've got the director, we want to do this. And they started doing pre-tests and working with the script and said, we'd be very interested in you doing a little bit of work. And at that time, I couldn't because I was committed to a television program. Right. I literally didn't have time to work on it. So I said, quite prepared to sign over the production to this other company. They gave me a sum of money and they went off and they made it into something that was nothing to do with me. My work just disappeared. Right. I got a little check from them, which was very nice, but they took my story and they made it into something that wasn't what I'd written.
Did you ever think of making a horror film because you're so interested in the supernatural, the unexplained?
I've got a couple of stories that are just true stories.
Right.
That people have never made into a Would
you like to make a film out of it?
Love to.
Right.
I was talking to somebody from the National Film Society because they've just had the big Newcastle Film Festival.
Right.
Yeah. I was talking to a couple of the lads and I says, if ever you need a ghostly or a grisly story, I know exactly what you should use. Because, yes, it's easy to make stuff up, but we've got so many great historical stories that nobody's ever picked up on.
And it's going to connect with the people just like that. But if you ever decide to cast for a witch, would you give me a call?
I would never even think of you in those terms.
You know what, Ellen? If my husband was on the casting panel, I would get the part anyway. He would say, you so look the part, Sanila.
Well, he knows you better, so I'll bow to his better judgment.
So, and you know, I am so amazed with your love to support the charities. You know, it feels like that you believe that charity is a privilege. It's not a duty.
Mm.
So, but I've seen you doing some incredible things like jumping from the Tyne Bridge. And then, you know, once you were just playing a football match and you got injured, you broke your wrist and you continued playing.
Mm.
So, what
I didn't know it was broken, otherwise I would have stopped. Yeah. The guy, I broke both bones, my ulnar and radius, and I put it in a sling and played the second half outfield. That's because I was in goal before. I dived at somebody's feet and they kind of kicked me. And it was on TV the next night, and you could hear the crack. You know, over all of the fans in the stadium, you could just hear this. So how I didn't know it was broken, and then of course I got on the air at night, came on the air, didn't go to the hospital.
Right.
And while I was on air, I was leaning on this hand, and I could hear in my headphones. And I wondered what's making that, and it was actually the bones in my hand. So after the show, went to the hospital and they plastered me and stuck a cast on.
You know what, Alan, what amazes me, that even though you felt probably voiceless and powerless and ignored as a child, but the fighter inside you, the warrior, stood up for you, even if it's for a cause, or maybe, you know, you're convincing a boss that, you know, I am going to speak in my accent and I'm going to just carry on doing it, and always knowing the value of your work. That's amazing. Where did you develop that?
You do what you can. Radio's changed very much. At the beginning, I joined a radio station that was young and hungry, and it wasn't part of a big chain. And we became a monster. We became the giant in the area, beating all comers for years.
Right. Okay.
And if you do enough things well, people leave you alone. And I've been lucky enough to have been left alone to do what I thought was right for the longest time.
You always stood up.
It's getting less. It's getting. They're trying to pick a little bit, but I suppose that's the nature of the corporate beast. But I'm fighting to remain so that I can do my own thing. Absolutely.
You always stood up for what you believed was right, and that's what probably
everybody has.
I totally agree with you, and I think that's what we call integrity, isn't it? Yeah, absolutely. So that's what led to the MBE as well. Did you meet the Queen?
Yes.
How was the experience?
She gets somebody else that puts the medal on.
Right. Okay.
And then you shake hands with her. And she gives you.
How's the shake hand like?
A little bit. Oh, she was very, very, very gentle. Because I think if you're going to shake hands with like 200 people, you're not gonna. It's not going to be a slapped high five. But no, she was very nice. She's very kind.
Right. Okay. That's brilliant.
Never had a big view over the royal family one way or another, but
right. Okay.
But she was very kind to me, and
what an honour.
Absolutely.
What an honour for you and for the whole Northeast.
Yeah, it was very.
Obviously, you never cease to find ways to express yourself. So you've written books, you've written autobiography. By the way, your autobiography, is it all true? Nothing but the truth?
That's exactly what
Fantastic. Yeah. So which of all your 6 books was the most well received?
Well, the two there was one called Grizzly Tales and Ghostly Trails and Ghostly Tales. Yeah. That was a bestseller instantly. Then I did a follow-up called Nightmare on Your Street. That was a bestseller as well. So those two probably been the best.
Yeah.
I've got a smaller label now looking after me because the guy from my previous book company robbed me of my entire life savings. And you know, you just get over one mountain and another mountain appears. And I tried to sue him, then he went bankrupt and I didn't get a penny back. And it was a fortune. I was building up a platform for the future that the safety net. And my whole safety net was taken away. He'd given me false checks and false checkbooks and all this kind of stuff. He had the lot away. So, because in this business you need people to help you. And unfortunately there's not very many that prove to be trustworthy. So then you have to, bills have to go again.
If he comes in front of you now, would you forgive him?
No, I'd hit him with a shovel. I mean, there's no question.
I like your honesty.
Yeah, no, I would bury him if I saw him.
Upside down, so they could come.
Well, I know where there's lots of mine shafts in the hills up in Concert. I'd find one where the wood's loose at the top. Right. And just say, come for a walk with me. Right. No, of course I wouldn't do that, but I felt like it at the time. Absolutely.
I know, exactly, and it's completely understandable. So you have 3 Facebook pages.
Yes.
So one is the Alan Robson's Night Owls.
Yes,
The
that's
other
my
one is
listeners.
listeners, Alan Robson's World and Alan Robson's Photography. I saw that as well, where you are actually selling pictures.
I'm not.
Are you not selling
That's
pictures?
not me. No, there's about. Trust me, there's about 200 Alan Robson sites
Is that right?
selling this and selling that. There's also Alan Robson radio,
Yeah.
and that's not me either.
Right.
There's people that go on YouTube and put videos on there,
Right.
and they say it's Alan Robson. It's not.
Right.
Nah.
Okay.
You've just got to be very careful because people, if you've got any kind of name at all, people will latch onto it and use it for their own behest. Stop it.
You have.
Stop it. You can't do anything about it.
You can't do anything about it. Absolutely. Alan, speak about the supernatural and the unexplained and the exorcism because so much has been said about it.
No, my parents, my mother once saw a ghost in my sister's house.
Yeah.
Something walked past her on the stairs. She thought it was my dad, and my dad was still in bed when she went up there. So she experienced it. My dad didn't believe in God.
Mm-hmm.
My sister was a Catholic, but she was not a kind, generous, pleasant Catholic. We were not close remotely. So I turned against the church altogether. I don't trust the church. Churches, mosques, synagogues. I don't trust the whole power thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's no disrespect to anybody that does.
Right.
Just when you have an organisation that expects your respect,
yes,
sometimes your money and support,
mm-hmm.
you have to respect them back. And the church over the years, especially the Christian churches, Catholicism, has done so much badly. And they haven't even prosecuted their own when they do the most heinous things. I can't have respect for an organisation like that. Instead, I trust and put my love in the people.
I have absolute respect for what you believe, and I am not challenging it because I do believe in ghosts as well. I see my husband every day, but he's a good one. He's an attractive ghost. And you are a qualified exorcist, mm-hmm. and what I'm really, really interested in to understand the process. If you have to go somewhere, you've been just invited, and you need to get that bad, evil spirit out of that person. What is the process like?
Well, first of all, you're going to find out. You see, there's 80% of the people that I deal with haven't got anything ghostly.
Really?
80%.
80%.
80%. Yeah. It's their own energy that the problem's with. So
the ghosts are inside.
They're creating their own bad karma around them.
Honestly,
so therefore, you have to find out what the reason for that is. You got to get under it, and once you find out what it is, you got to teach them how to get out from under that particular rock. If there is something there, there's 4 dozen different ceremonies that you can carry out.
Okay, right.
On them, depending. But
yeah.
If it's violent, never really had a particularly violent challenge. There was a woman in Sunderland who was being clawed by this thing, and she'd been sent to hospital 2 or 3 times with ripping her stomach and her breasts. And it was the mother of her ex-husband who died. The mother always hated her. So the mother came back to make this woman's life.
See, she was actually scratched by an evil spirit.
Yeah. I saw it. I mean, I just saw, looking at her arm, you just see a line appear. Like if somebody just clawed you or something. And it started to bleed. And the woman had, and you go, well, you can't make that up. I've just seen it,
Yeah.
So you take it seriously and you find out what's at the root of it all. We discovered who it was, what it was, and help her on our way.
Oh my God. So what is the success rate with that when you go and just help somebody out? Do they get rid of the evil spirit?
I've probably done about 300 to 400 in total. Not people who've been possessed, people who are just bothered. I haven't done a truly possessed individual, not that I've believed. I had a couple of people that were mentally ill, but that was a different thing altogether. And I've had probably 1 that I was unhappy with. The rest I'm quietly confident of.
Is that right? I'd love to see that happening someday, if you're kind enough to
We've done so on air.
We've
done so on air. We've done it live on air, but I don't want people to see, because then they'll go and they'll try and emulate it as if they know what they're doing.
They shouldn't emulate it. That's a very important message. So, Alan, let's have some light-hearted questions now, really. What is the biggest, turn-off for you when it comes to women? I mean, is it... let's start with the turn-on first. Okay, what is the biggest turn-on for you when it comes to women?
If they're breathing.
Silky.
If they're breathing to start.
Silky hair, grace... I mean, smell
I'm not bothered about looks. I'm not bothered about size. It's the princess that lives within. It's the sparkle.
It's the princess within.
If they've got a glorious soul, I'll have them. Well,
Fantastic.
I mean, only if they're willing. Of course. Yes, no,
It has to be a mutual decision.
No.
And the turn-offs, like poor eating manners, too much talking, or promiscuousness. Do you think
if somebody cheats, that's gone. They've gone.
No, but the promiscuousness is different because women who just throw themselves.
Don't mind flirting as long as they're loyal.
As long as they're loyal.
Loyal, steadfast, true. That's what they have to be.
That's what you look for, and that's
all I'm prepared to accept. Don't mind if they kind of beat me up a bit. I don't mean physically.
Oh.
I don't mind if they keep me on my toes. That's a plus, not a minus. Don't mind if they have a mind and a life of their own. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
Just need them to be loyal, steadfast, and true. And as I say, anything less than that, nobody should put up with. Ever.
Absolutely. I think it's a great lesson for the guys and the girls both. Absolutely. It has to be both ways. So, what is your guilty pleasure?
I'm not sure I really have a guilty pleasure.
Okay.
I like good quality food when I love travelling. Travelling probably is
travelling. It's not guilty. You don't have to be guilty about that.
Well, you do if you spend too much money on it.
Too much money on it. What was your biggest crush in life ever?
Crush.
Other than your wife, of course. She's your wife now.
My biggest crush. There's a woman I regret not sleeping with. I don't know whether that counts.
Maybe she was not sleepy at that time.
No, she was. Well, she was, and it was the daftest thing. There's a girl I used to hang out with. She was lovely. I have met her subsequently. She's married. She's got 2 grown-up children.
Oh,
and
you still think of her?
Well, no, I saw her. I saw her at Marks and Spencer's.
Is she still attractive?
Fruit department, and it was kind of like, wow, there she is. Hasn't changed.
Oh, brilliant!
Hasn't changed.
So, did you enjoy being a boyfriend more than a husband? And what's the difference, by the
way? If I fall in love with somebody, they will be my wife. Because I'm not messing about. I'm not in it.
What a gentleman you are.
I think, well, I say that. In between wives, I used to go crazy with women. Well, not any woman, but lots of women.
Right.
And then I'd stop, I'd meet the right one, and suddenly everything would relax. And then you can concentrate on that relationship. And I've always been the same with that. But then again, maybe that's the reason that they end up cheating. Maybe it's karma because of the wild moments in between.
All right, okay.
It's possible. You don't know.
Well, I used to think that, an ideal boyfriend is who doesn't drink, who doesn't smoke, and who doesn't cheat. And that's why he doesn't exist. But you do exist. That's great. So what was the biggest wake-up call ever in your life from God or universe that woke you up to yourself?
Wake-up call recently is health, really.
Right, okay.
Discovered I was diabetic.
Really? When
Tried.
Did you find out?
Just about a year and a half, 2 years.
Year and a half, 2 years.
So then all of a sudden I'm starting to run, but I was always running. I was always exercising.
Mm-hmm.
But I was starting to become my dad's shape. And I'm roughly my dad's shape. And I hated being my dad. Hated being my dad. Hated looking like my dad. Hated being my dad's shape. Whether it's a genetic thing or not, I don't know.
What's dad's shape?
No matter, this shape, which is dad's shape, like barrel-chested, not slim. I was always snake-hipped. I was always,
you were very thin.
I was always very, very slim. And all of a sudden, boom, this happens.
Mm-hmm.
And you say, well, what have I got to do? So then you run miles,
yeah.
You get on that blasted cross trainer even longer, and nothing changes.
Mm-hmm.
I've got bloods and stuff under control, happy days. I'm prone to kidney stones, which is devilishly painful. So, you see, that's again, I do something bad, I'll get a kidney stone. It is nature letting me know that I'm not Superman.
You're not Superman, but you've done so well.
Just an ordinary bloke.
What keeps you alive at this stage?
When you reach the middle bit of your life, which I think I'm safely at, and you see what's left, for most people, it's that. And I don't want that.
Yes, and it's
I'm just kind of, I want to do that.
Yeah.
So that's my aim, to do that as long as I can before I start doing that. So I'm kind of still on the peak, still making decent money, still travelling, still sending the message out.
Well, I don't see any decline as far as I'm concerned, even in the remote future as well. But are there any missed opportunities that you still feel?
Millions.
Okay.
Millions.
Who do you remember the most, Alan? Those who helped you in a difficult time, or those who left you in the difficult times, or those who put you in the difficult times?
Whenever I'm with someone,
Yeah.
and I'm obviously with my wife now. Everything from before is gone.
So you're not a past person?
Never crosses my mind. I put it all in the. That's in the bin. That was then some good times, some bad times. However it ended, good or badly.
So
that's
don't look
then.
back.
I've got to look forward.
What would you say to a 6-year-old Alan today at this stage in life? A 6-year-old Alan.
I think you should enjoy yourself more.
Yeah.
You should, even when you start working, whatever your journey is, to always make sure that you've got time for the people around you, because my family didn't. Right. If you've got a family that love you, you love them back. Mm-hmm. Nothing terribly deep. Yeah. But I do think that throughout life, the one mistake that most people make, they either say, I'm just going to go and get wrecked. I'm going to get drunk. We're going to Ibiza. We're going to get off my face. And you end up having time that you don't remember. Mm. You should go and enjoy yourself doing things you will remember. You will remember forever, because your life is a journey where you're picking up. And as I say, if I look at things that I've done that's bucket list, I did that. I don't know whether you saw the film of me going head first off the mountain. I did. That's a stupid. Was in Dubai? That's a stupid damn thing. Yeah. Looking back, I'm glad I did that. While I was up there, I didn't. But I even bottled out at the very beginning. I cannot do this. However, but once you've done it, you say, I'm glad I've done that. I'm glad that I've parachuted. I'm glad that I've bungee jumped. I'm glad that I've flown over the Nazca lines in Peru. Those big ancient pictures in the desert. I'm glad that I've been inside a pyramid. I'm glad I've been in Turkey's hidden underground city.
Wow,
I'm glad I've
honestly.
been. But you can go on forever with this. And these are all things that most people in their lives have never done. So always be aware there's a chance to, maybe tomorrow you can add to your bucket list by doing something super cool that will be a memory for the rest of your life. But you still have to make a horror film, and I need a part in that. Well, there you go. If it comes off in the way you are.
Finally, Alan, do you realise the value of your work? Do you realise the impact you have made on people's lives and in the industry in general? Sometimes
I do. Sometimes I feel that I haven't done as much. Sometimes I feel that, if somebody comes up and says, you made a difference, you helped here, you sent my daughter to Disneyland, or you've done all of these kind of nice things, or even just when I was getting over my husband, I listened to you and you really helped. Things like that, and you feel nice and warm and fuzzy. Janis Joplin, the rock singer, said,
"Wow, what a singer!"
Yeah, she said, "Every night I go on stage and I make love to 10,000 people. Yeah, but I go home alone."
I go home and give me goosebumps. What a fantastic.
That's kind of what it's like. Yeah. Even now, I know I've got a wife at home and she's lovely, but I'm independent and on my own. But I still have this feeling of, probably because of the life that I've lived, I always feel that I'm not totally with anybody. I'm very sad about it.
Oh, about it?
Yes, I am. I wish that I could not feel that.
Oh, you feel that way?
It's not a nice thing to feel. But it is what it is. When I first did my very first show, I felt so boosted and pumped about it. I thought on the way home, people would be out on the streets applauding my car, traveling, waving flags. And everybody was just doing their thing. And of course, it's a lesson learned. I don't think I'm blessed. I've had an amazing life. If I have more good things from here, it's a bonus. It's the cherry on the pie.
You know what, Alan? What makes you amazing is, I think, you're awesome because you're flawsome. Because your beautiful imperfections are so relatable to us. And then your path has a heart.
You're painting me in a picture that isn't really true.
I think I'm talking from heart, from what I know
nice
you about.
That's what you feel.
I do feel that. My experience has been so far.
I know the dirty, nasty side of me, and there is one.
Well, that's long gone, and it's part of it. That's what we call shadow selves. We need to know how to embrace them as well, not disown them, and that's the beauty of it. I think your path has a heart because you're inclusive, you're wholesome, and I think you're amazing. And getting to know you, honestly, it's not only a privilege. That reminds me of the song that you sang. Actually, what was that? God, when you're this perfect, it's so hard to be humble, isn't it?
There was a tongue firmly in my cheek when I sang that song.
Can I thank you for that? Thank you so much.
No
It was such a pleasure. You were wonderful.
Thank
Thanks
you.
a lot.
You've been very kind.